Hello, everybody, and welcome to Making Art Public, our series of artist talks. And today, again, we are finishing up part 2 with our world-renowned artist, Bernard Hoyes. And he was just telling us, well, was trying to tell us when we got cut off, what are some kinds of art you think that you would create to help the Coachella Valley heal?
Well, I came here in pursuit of doing more 3D works because where I was in LA, I kind of got into a rut with painting and publishing, which was good for me because it was the reality of the success that I got from paintings that put me in publishing. But it took over my art. It took over my art practice, and that was not my intentions. I wanted to be an artist that was inspired, that was open for inspiration in whatever form the inspiration takes me to. I like working with 3D. I like challenges. And so I figured if I set myself up to do, I used to go by Noah Purefoy's studio and art domain in the Joshua Tree. And like what he was doing, I knew him from my early days when I came to LA, and he was running the Watts Towers Art Center. And so I saw his trajectory as an artist and liked what he did because basically he retired to his art. And he always kind of complained that he waited too late. And I said, well, I'm not going to wait that late. I'm going to make a thing. So during the success of selling paintings and doing publishing, I saw enough of a way to have a cash flow that I could purchase property out here in the valley. My father-in-law was living here. He was already here for years. My wife was raised here. So in coming out frequently, I get kind of acclimed to the climate. And I liked it, and liked the fact that I could have acreage for a sculpture garden like Noah. So I set about to do that. And so it took another 10 years for that to materialize in terms of actually doing sculpture. During the downfall, the economic downturn after 9/11, and by 2005, 2007, the art market fell flat on its face, except for artists who were like still viable in painting, but like the dealers and the galleries, they were closing, and it was a matter of go for what you know. So I took the opportunity then to retool my studio for sculpture because that's what I wanted to do. So I started to apply for sculpture projects, bid for sculpture projects, and finally got a really good break from one of my classmates that I went to school with in Vermont. And he's a fisherman, and he wanted to do a commemorative piece on a prize-winning tuna that he caught in a tournament, and won a lot of money. The fishermen, what they do, they put a kitty together for entry, and whoever catch the highest weight tuna get the whole kitty. That year he won, and he says, when I knew in school you were doing sculpture, what happened? I said, well, painting. I don't know, painting travels well when I came to California, I couldn't bring any of my sculptures with me. I had to leave them behind. And so I just stayed with the painting. And so I didn't really speak to him about it again. And while my studio got destroyed by water, of all things, in the desert. I was doing an art tour back east with my paintings, and I was back east for about 2.5 months. And while I was away, my studio supply line for the toilets, they broke upstairs and flooded the whole downstairs and part of the upstairs. And the place became a petri dish for mold, because it got it wet enough and flooded enough after maybe say 4 or 5 weeks. I'm guessing that's when how much time the water was here. And it just saturated all my paintings, all my book, all my memorabilia, everything, the whole place. When the insurance came out, they just closed the place down and just deemed it a toxic mess. And we couldn't get back into the place. So at night we would break in and I would look for my slides and look for special stuff. But they had to just clear the place out. And so for 2 years, I didn't have any use of the studio. All I had was the grounds. So I called my friend back east in Connecticut and said, look, that piece you were talking about doing that, I like to take on that project now because I think I have a clear way for it. So we started working on how we were going to do this commemorative sculpture for his prize-winning catch. And he was very open in terms of my vision, because my vision was not only just to do the sculpture, my vision was to really make a place for myself in the world of sculpture and the sculptural material and what I was going to use. I was always good with soapstone and marble, and I wanted to do this new project in granite. So we finally got to the point where we decided the piece should match the weight of the tuna. The tuna was something like 600 to 800 pounds. So we said, well, we'll do something commemorative, comparing the weight. And so when I looked into it, I really couldn't get a solid piece of granite anywhere in the United States, in Mexico. And so a friend of mine who's a stone sculptor here in Desert Hot Springs, Roger Hopkins, he put me onto this guy in China that sold large pieces of granite. And the connection to the guy in China kind of opened me up. After he told me what the factory was like and all that, I realized that this was an age-old tradition of doing stone and stone sculpture, and that they had. It went back 400 or 500 years. And I said, well, wait a minute. What if I do the sculpture there in China so that I could learn some of that stuff that you guys have been carrying on with all those years? He said, well, just come on. You buy the rock and just come on and we'll produce it here. So I went to China and lived with them for 2 months, 2.5 months, and carved the tuna. And it became like a springboard for me in 3D. So that's how I started doing sculpture. That was in 2009.
And where's that sculpture now? Is it someplace on display that we can see your prize-winning tuna?
Well, it's in the collector's home in Amagaset, in the Hamptons, upstate. Was that New York, New Jersey? It's but it it was an ordeal in the sense of not just living in China and just through the lifestyle. I loved all that part, but the challenge of shipping a 4-ton granite from China to LA, and then I had to truck it to LA because during that time I had a mishap with a windstorm that blew off the roof of my house in Desert Highway where I'm living now, and so I had to repair that before I could leave. So the tuna sat up for about 2 months, and then we had to truck it to the Hamptons and then have it installed. So all of that was documented, but the challenge of it was that you get to learn about moving and using large equipment, trucking, shipping, not just through the water lanes, but just through the land. We had to rent 2 or 3 different trucks from Desert Hot Springs to Amagaset. When we got there, they wouldn't let the truck in because it was too large. So we had to transfer the sculpture to a smaller truck so that I could get into the city limits of Amagaset. So that in itself was, but I had a really cool collector, and he just kind of looked at the whole thing as an adventure, and we pulled it through. It took about a year and a half to pull it off, and I've since done about 3 or 4 sculpture projects that large. So it's, you know, being an artist, you have to be open. It's a practice. It's this practice that you create new skills for your set, for your skill sets. You take on challenges that you never had before, but you keep that creative endeavor in mind. You bring a sense of perfection to whatever it is that you do. You just don't jump into it blindly. You study it up. You understand the history. You understand all the materials and all the different facets that goes into it. Who are living up to the challenges as artists in that in that medium, and try to be shoulder to shoulder with them.
Now, with your next piece that you're creating, I understand that you're creating another piece in a big piece in Kingston, Jamaica. Is that sort of the same process that you're now encountering? What part of the process are you on now? And how, from beginning to end, did that project come about? Because it seems like now you're a little bit more versed with the international market. You're working in China, shipping to the United States. I mean, this is like every artist's dream come true. Tell us the process from start to end on how such a venture comes about as an artist.
Well, it's, as again, I say, it's, with me, I'm making a living with my art. So I'm always looking for projects that can give me a cash flow, but also projects that motivate me to learn something new and to excel in what I already know. So while I was working with the Palm Springs Art Commission, and we were working out the details of how we are going to, the audiences that we have to deal with to put up the mural at the church, I went to Jamaica to take care of my sister's affair. She had passed earlier that summer, and kind of looked out for my nieces and nephew and cousins and so forth. And while I was there, the Kingston Creative program was getting started, and they were trying to get to running. So my commission from the Arts Commission in Palm Springs for the mural was already stated and was out there. I was just waiting for the ordinance to be cleared and get the permits to start painting. So they wanted to enlist me to do a mural right then. So what basically, again, in terms of when you think about doing things, if you think broadly and think future and think how we can make efforts count, that was pretty much, I only had a month left in Jamaica at the time, in Kingston. So we planned a paint-off for one weekend. And so we invited about 20 artists, and we cordoned off one lane downtown Kingston that I'm very familiar with because I was raised in Kingston. And for 3 days, we just had a paint-off. And because I was going to paint the mural there, but what I told him, I says, let me not be the only one that's painting the mural. I would like to be able to have a whole crowd of artists down there painting murals. So we got a lot of different spots and assigned walls to the artists. And for that week, basically it was, we started like the Thursday and ended the Monday. And we ended up with about 50 murals just that quick. So that started the Kingston Creatives. And I came back to Palm Springs and started the mural at the church and finished it up by March. So my intention going to Jamaica was all about family, and got enlisted in terms of my reputation as an artist. Kind of let me know somewhat that my efforts haven't been in vain in terms of spending all these years laying down my artistic legacy, so to speak. And so they, when they came to me, I saw the earnestness in the request, and I said, well, let's go for it, you know? And then with that strength and that energized confidence, I was able to come back to Palm Springs and attack that mural at the side of the church and knocked it out in a month.
Oh,
You know?
wow.
That was a big wall. That was a 2-story wall, about 50 feet long, you know? So it was a lot of work.
And is that another project would you like to create in the Coachella Valley, getting a group of artists together to create murals in Palm Springs?
Well, yeah, I could, I like that. It's very energizing. In Kingston, I've been going back and forth to Kingston for a long time in terms of my art practice, and a lot of the work that I've created in the past had to do with my family and their connection to the revival religion, which is a African influence, Afrocentric religion. So the attention to the work and the recognition for the work that I got from Jamaica was a good deal. It made, it strengthened the authenticity of the work. And so I would go back and share the work. So like almost every year I'd go to Jamaica and do a show. It didn't matter what time of the year, but I still trying to keep the connection. So to see the downtown and saw how dilapidated, there was an insurrection in Jamaica in '77, and the whole downtown was burnt down, and they never really rebuilt it. So I've done exhibition in the downtown in the burnt out building to call attention to the atrocity of neglect that was going on in the downtown, because there were still people that lived in the downtown, but it was derelict, you know? And the Kingston Harbor, which was one of the highlights of shipping harbors in the Caribbean that was one of the 10 natural shipping harbors in the world, was just sitting there being polluted, you know? So I would call attention to all of that. So there was an understanding that my seriousness about working towards the environment and the social strata of Jamaica, not just artistically, they knew that. So it was easy to get into that. So it rubbed off in such a way since I started working with the Kingston Creative, where they're still going, even with this coronavirus lockdown. They're doing virtual things about the murals and still getting artists involved in looking at the renovation of downtown. The sculpture that I'm working on presently is an outlay where they wanted to do a street museum on the historical business boulevard in downtown Kingston. So I was assigned the first mural for that street. Not really a mural, it was it's a sculpture for that, and it's a 12 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot steel and aluminum and limestone sculpture of a pair of hummingbirds doing a maiden dance. The doctor bird, or the hummingbirds in Jamaica, is a national bird. It's a bird of honor. So to have a large scale piece of 2 maiden birds in steel with the long tails and things like that, that's what this piece is all about. So I'm working at that as we speak, and I'm trying to ship it down for August for Independence, so that it could be unveiled. And this latest uptick in in the virus is not looking too good for it, because it's going to be tough to ship and travel for the next 2 months. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed and prayers sending up libations to everybody.
Well, we are hoping that in Palm Springs that we can get more of your art, your sculptural art, and your work. We would love to figure out some way to do a collective and continue your legacy here in the Coachella Valley. So I want to thank you once again for talking to us. We're looking forward to working with you, as well as seeing and praying and hoping that this particular artwork that you're working on now gets done. And we cannot wait to see more beautiful art from you, Bernard. Thank you so much for taking the time out to finish our interview. Thank you so much once again.
Yeah, that collective sounds wonderful. I would be honored to undertake it if we can put the peoples together to do that. I think it would be a good extension of the wall at St. Paul's.
And it also will help the Coachella Valley, and particularly Palm Springs, heal from a lot of racial unrest that we've had over the years.
And we really need it. That's something that we should work towards, and I'll be happy to help.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Once again, it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good luck.
Thanks for having me.
Many blessings to you, safe travels, and keep us posted on the progress of all your work. We'll see you soon.
All right. And blessings to all of you, and stay safe.
Yes. Bye-bye.